And okay, all right. What's up? It's your boy Dita God, and this is my first. My This is gonna be my first What If, and if it does well, I'm gonna keep doing more, and let's see how this one goes. This one is gonna be what if Deku had the Pika Pika no Mi, as you see right there. It was hard to find a picture. It shouldn't have been that hard, but it was. But anyway, what if he had the Pika Pika no Mi? Now, Um, how I'm gonna start the story? Well, Inko, gave birth to Izuku, and he was born without a quirk, so that's where I'm going with this. Um, a few years later, I'd say around when Deku's at least 4 or something, you know, he him Deku and his mom went outside, went to the park. Let's say they just went to the park and Deku was just, playing around the park, what kids do. And he randomly sees something shining in a bush. So he goes and see it and check it out. And it's the Pika Pika no Mi. And you know how kids are, you know, he just tasted a little bit. He was wondering if it was a fruit or something, but then when he realized it was, he wanted to give it a taste, and it was gross. He did not like it at all. He spat it out, like he swallowed some of it, but he did not enjoy that once at all. He said it tasted like that could say, ugh, tastes like toilet water, and I mean that's what they do, be tasting like toilet water. Anyway, and the fruits effects. And this one, if I kind of have to tweak it a little bit. So when he eats the devil fruit, the extra bone in his body kind of, I'm gonna say disappear. Not disappear, but like dissolve or turn into light itself and just remove itself. So it's like, it's not like an anomaly or something. So after that, they go to the park or whatever. Um, I'm gonna say like a few weeks later, you know, they go to the doctor. Inko and Izuku go to the doctor to see if he has a quirk, and the doctor says he does have a quirk, but they don't really know what it is or what it can do. So they start running tests and all of that, and yeah, it doesn't really end well. Well, not like anyone died or anything, but Deku kind of, did laser, and it kind of blew up a good chunk of the office. So everyone's okay, but it scared the hell out of everyone. Got scared, and it's understandable because Deku just pointed and a laser just came out of his finger and it exploded something. So they really had to do even more tests than usual. So they figured out that, and then when the doctor was finished, Inko kind of panicked. He was like, "What happened?" And it was like that was Deku's quirk, and his quirk is uh well, I don't know what they would call his quirk. I guess light or laser or like laser or something. Hmm. I think they'd call it like they ain't gonna call it like maybe like light manipulation or something. I don't know what they'd call it. Well, and then I don't know. And then Deku, I guess Deku would probably say in his mind that would say aloud that his quirk is called uh glint or like glitter or like his quirk is called he says flash in a way, I guess, like glint, glitter and stuff like that. So but he's like, call it glint or flash or something, and the doctor was like, Yeah, it's something like that. And it goes like, oh, well, is it like a powerful quirk? Because she noticed the giant gaping hole in the office, so she's very concerned about that. And the doctor is like, yes, you need to make sure he trains his quirk correctly because his quirk is very, and I mean very dangerous. It was only a little laser about the size of his pinky, and it did a giant hole in the wall. So, you know, that's a cause for concern. So, after all that, the next day, Izuku went to school, and and it's like, Katsuki, revealing he got his quirk and, unleashing them explosions, and he's like, yeah, I have the best quirk, which I mean, it's a pretty good quirk. Explosion is pretty hot, but but and Deku's like, "Oh, I have a quirk too." And then Bakugo's like, "Eh? You got yourself a quirk?" And then Deku's like, "Yeah." And then he just he tried to control it a little bit. He unleashed a little thing of light in his finger, and he says, "My quirk is called uh glit or flat. It's called Flash. Let's just call it Flash from now on. Okay. By Flash, I mean the Pika Pika no Mi, but Deku calls it Glint or Flash, because I don't think. Yeah, actually, no, let's just go at Glint. He says his quirk is called Glint. And Bakugo's like, Glint? And then he's confused, just like I am. He's confused, and Deku says he basically controls light, but then because I know people might say something about it, but I ain't there yet. I will reveal that later on. So it's revealed like and he shoots a little bit of it, not a lot, but he shoots a little bit, and it kind of just it pierces through, like it kind of just goes like reflects. No, no, it like he hits, like they go outside and Deku like hits a rock and it just explodes, and Bakugo's like, whoa. Well, that quirk better than mine, but he ain't gonna say that out loud because he's Bakugo. And so now he's like, man. And it's like, and people are saying, and the kids and even the teachers are saying his quirk is even flashier, if not, is about the same amount, or if not flashier and more powerful than Bakugo's. And Bakugo kind of overheard that, and he didn't like that. So they kind of got a little rivalry going on. Since they both have flashy and powerful quirks, they're just basically trying to see which one's better. So as the years goes on, the rivalry slash friendship gets even better. It's not like they're best friends or anything. They're rivals at heart. And yeah, so I'm gonna have to pause it right quick. Hold on. All right, so sorry about that. I was just had to take care of some business. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the years goes on, rival and all that, and let's just say at one point, um, no, 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 we're gonna go to the end of the middle school, and let's just say, the teacher comes in, it's like, what y'all want to do with your lives or whatever, with the papers and all that. But he just throws all the papers. It's like, yeah, I know y'all want to be heroes and whatnot, and everyone just going wild, just showing off their quirks. And for the record, like Deco's middle school, not all their quirks are that good. Some quirks are okay, like one had like rock fist, the other one had fire. Some dude had stretchy fingers and then stretchy eyes. I'm like, y'all not gonna be heroes. So when Bakugo's like, hey, don't compare me to these losers. I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, they not that good. And all the kids they was like, well. I mean, he's not wrong, but it's kind of messed up. And then Deku was like, Bakugo, probably need to chill out. And Bakugo was like, whatever, shut up. And he's like, you wanna go? And Deku's like, I don't think so, Kacha. And and he still calls him Deku, and like Bakugo still calls him Deku, just because that's just a childhood nickname at this point. It's not insulting or anything. It's just a nickname, and Deku calls Bakugo Kachan and all that. So yeah, and then the teacher was like, "Oh yeah, Izuku, you wanna join too?" And the others was like, "Well, that's to be expected because his quirk, or quirk with the quotations, uh, is just as powerful and flashy, if not more, than Bakugo. But they don't know how powerful it actually is, and it will get power. Like it's straight up nonsense. But that'll be in the future. So after all that, you know, Deku just tries to, since it's been over the years, Deku had found out that, he can move pretty fast with his quirk, but for the most part, he doesn't really use it that much because it's so powerful. He doesn't use it, and how fast is T? How fast is Deku? I want to say the speed of light, but I mean, come on, man. Uh, let's say I'm gonna say at least almost the speed of light. Like he can't reach it yet, but he's getting there. You know, um, just chalk it up to him not using his quirk that much. Uh, and but so he like takes his he likes taking it slow. So he walks. When school's over, Bakugo asks Deku, Bakugo with his goons or whatever, he asked them if they want to go, want to go out or do something or whatever. But Deku's like, no, I gotta go home. I gotta, do something like check this out, check on my notes and stuff. And Bakugo's like, well, all right, then. And then they go their separate ways. Damn. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. I again, uh, so many people. Some people was asking me about something. Anyway, nah, I gotta find out where I was again. This is the second time this happened, so. uh, mm, mm, oh yeah, yeah. The sludge villain attack and all that. So, how this gonna go? All right. So this is how it's really gonna go right now, cause Deku, taking a stroll. He's kind of even slower than usual because he likes to take his time despite having the power to go at the speed of light. He values taking his time, I guess. And so, by the time he get there, the sludge villain actually appears and, tries to grab Deku. He's like, hey, kid, give me your body. He's like, hey, kid, give me your body. And Deku's like, wait, what? And then the sludge villain just tried to, consume him, I guess, with the quotations there. Uh, but Deku just kind of walks through him, and the sludge villain's like, wait, what? And Deku just looks back and he's like, ew, what? He's in his mind. He's kind of panicking a little bit, but he try to keep a calm, cool demeanor, and he's like, "Oh, a villain, huh?" So Deku's like, he's contemplating whether or not he should use his quirk, and so the Sludge villain charges back again, and he decides to shoot laser. Not a big one, but a relatively small one, and. Yeah, the Sludge villain, it hurts. Like it's a pretty. It's not much of an explosion. It's more just a pierce because Deku over the years Deku controlled, how much damage it does, or what the light actually does. because usually it just explodes and the sludge villain would have died, no question. But he pierces through the sludge villain, and the sludge villain, it hurt the sludge villain. The sludge villain, he's confused. He's wondering why it hurts so much. And then All Might comes. He's like, have no fear because I am here. All Might. He do all that, and he coming in with a Texas smash. Was it a Texas smash or was it Detroit smash? I think it was Texas smash. Yeah, it was Texas smash. I think. And you know, Deku, he sees All Might. He's like, "Whoa, thanks, All Might." And all that, and while All Might's getting the sludge filling up, and Deku's like, "Can I get an autograph?" and whatnot. And then, but All Might's like, "Kid, I already got you covered." And he looked at his notebook and he already seen an autograph, and he's like, "Wow, thanks, All Might." And then Deku was like, and All Might was like, "Well, kid, duty calls or whatever, gotta go. See you around, I guess." And All Might almost tried to leap up. Well, no, All Might leaped up in the air, but Deku had a question for All Might. He was like, "Wait, All Might," but All Might was already pretty decently in the air. So Deku, he used his quirk and he just, zoomed up with All Might. And they kind of talking in the air, and they're like, and All Might's like, "Whoa, kid, that's a pretty gnarly quirk you got there." And he's like, "Oh, thank you," and all that. And he's like, "What kind of quirk is it?" And he says, "My quirk's called, Glint," and All Might's like, "Glint, huh? What does that mean?" And keep in mind, they're still in the air. They're like still in the air. So, Deku's basically flying, I guess, or he's traveling so fast it basically looks like he's flying. Same with All Might. And Deku explains like, I have the power of manipulating, and I just recently discovered becoming light itself. And then All Might's like, "Whoa, that's a pretty powerful quirk, kid." And he's like, "Yeah, it's dangerous too." And All Might's like, "Dangerous?" And he's like, and Deku's like, "Have you ever got kicked at the speed of light?" or that's what Deku's like, because ever since he's made of light, he assumes everything he does when he uses quirk is at the speed of light. So he's like, "Have you ever got kicked at the speed of light? It really hurts." You know, that's why I have to control my quirk. And All Might's like, and then keep in mind they're still in the air, and by the time they actually land on the building because they've been talking for so long, All Might's like, "Shit," and my time is running out, and then he debuff, and Deku sees it, and he's like, "Wait, are you an imposter?" And then All Might's like, "No, I'm actually All Might," and Deku's like, "Whoa," and so he kind of explains what happens and all that, and then All Might realizes the sludge villain is gone, and he's like, "Shit, where'd it go?" And then All Might leaves, and then there's an explosion a few miles off, a few blocks off, and Neku's like, "Well, better check that out." So he uses his quirk. Hold on. Okay, now where was I again? Um. Oh yeah, yeah. Deku uses his quirk to know to go there, and he's in the crowd. Deku's in the crowd, and he sees All Might. So he looks ahead. Deku looks ahead, and he sees um that the Sludge villain is back again, and he sees someone else, and he sees Bakugo. And Deku kind of gets mad at this because he knows it's kind of his fault that happened. So, he kind of just Deku was like, "Is any of the heroes gonna help or anything?" And the heroes are like, "We don't have the quirk, suitable for this situation." And Deku's like, and Deku just he's a heavy sigh. He's like, "Alright," and then he just zooms past, and he just grabs Bakugo and yank him out. And then everyone's in shock because it happened so fast. And then Deku was like, Like, and then Deku use his light beams again, but this time he since he's a little angry, he kind of loses control of it a little bit, and it causes a little explosion. A contained explosion, of course, but an explosion nonetheless. So yeah, Sludge Villain, he's out. He's out, and then not crap. That's not what I meant. And then um, hold on. Okay, there we go. All right. So and where was I? Oh yeah, yeah. All Might, he sees that, and after the shock and All Might appears, and he's like, you know, there's no need to fear, for I am here. The classic. And then yeah, let's see, and yeah, and All Might, you know, he you know, the people was telling Deku that that was dangerous or whatever, but Deku was like, if y'all not gonna do anything about it, then I'm gonna do something about it. And then they couldn't really argue with that. They really couldn't. So they really and I mean they really couldn't argue with him on in that point because he's right. So after Deku left, and Bakugo, they kind of just ran off at the speed of light, and yeah, and, Bakugo was home, and All Might finally caught up to them, and he was like, "Man, you're fast, kid," and it's like, at the speed of light, and and then All Might's like, "So you showed, could be a real hero out there," and then All Might's like, I want to give you my quirk." And then Deku was like, I don't think I'd need it. Yeah. And then All Might he'd be questioning, he'd be like, what? And then Deku would explain, my quirk is pretty dangerous on its own. So even if you could give me a quirk, that'd be kind of overkill at this point. So, and then All Might's like, he say he's looking for a successor, and he's like, and Deku's like, I know someone who needs a boost in power because Deku knows he's stronger, faster, smarter. Well, not they're kind of even when it comes to smartness, but Deku has pretty much every advantage over Bakugo. So Deku's like, I want to give my rival a little boost to help him out. And so, you know, he mentions Bakugo, and All Might's like, well, are you sure? And Deku's like, yeah, that could work. And All Might's like, well, let me at least train you, for the next 10 months, because Deku, he said he was going to UA, and All Might's like, let me train you for the 10 months, and I guess you can bring Bakugo too. And then Deku was like, sure thing. And so after all that, you know, Deku just goes and they do the basically brings Bakugo with him to the beach to I forgot what the beach was called. Uh but y'all know what I'm talking about, the beach. And Bakugo, he's kind of pissed cuz Deku didn't really explain why they're there, but a surprise. And then this Small Might. And then Bakugo's like, who's this dying old prune? And then he says, and the Deku said, that's All Might. And then Bakugo, he shook. He like, what? And then he's like, yeah. And so All Might buffed up a little bit for a quick second, and then Bakugo's like, whoa. And then Deku explained, about the quirk passing on and you being a successor. And Bakugo is mighty pissed at Deku because he passed up that opportunity. But Bakugo already knows that Deku is like a walking light nuke, I guess. So it'd be kind of overpowered. Like it's already hard to try to match up to him as is. Give him anything else extra, and it'll be pretty much impossible. So Bakugo, he ain't going to admit none of that, but he knows, and so he passed down the quirk. All Might plucked one of his hairs and he said, "Eat this." And Bakugo looking, he's like, "What the hell?" And then Deku just kind of laughing. He's like, "He told you to eat it." And then Bakugo begrudgingly ate it, and he's like, "Ugh." And then, the next day, they started training. They do their 10 months of training, and I'd say after the 10 months, Bakugo knows full Cowling already, and he mastered at least 5% of One Fall by this point. I would push it, but nah, 5% is good. Bless you. Oh Jesus, and 5% is good at this point. So yeah, and I'm just end it here. I'm gonna end it before the entrance exams. If you like this, if you like the dish, like and subscribe. Let me know if I should change anything about it. Since this is my first what if, I want to see how well I did. Let me know. Let me know what I did. And yeah, uh, see y'all on the next one. Peace.